Hello. Now, each year around this time of year, I present some ideas on the trends that I see within digital marketing. This year, they're based on some research that I'll share in this presentation that I'm delivering at TFM in Earl's Court in London, September. It's a great show for the technologies agencies. You see their stands for learning the new trends and the talks as well. Now, it's always useful to, when we're looking at the new technologies that are emerging, to think where they are on this hype cycle from Gartner. This allows us to look at the new and upcoming technologies and those that are in the peak and dropping into this beautifully named trough of disillusionment before they become perhaps popular more later, or they never make it. Now, from the business point of view, it's a double-edged sword, really. You can adopt too early, or you can adopt too late, and it's often useful to remain competitive, to at least be aware of what's on the rise, and that's what I'll cover a lot in this session, looking at AI in particular. Now, Gartner updates their hype cycles each year. The marketing one isn't out yet at this point, but they do have one for emerging technologies, and you'll see, as well as the curve, they also show where the plateau here will be reached. So what's very obvious here is that generative AI is right at the peak of the hype, and of course with that we think of prompts where you're prompting an AI to generate copy, which is transforming so many areas of life since the launch of ChatGPT. Now, I'm seeing a bit of pushback against ChatGPT, and there are emerging technologies like Claude and Pi, and of course Google's Bard, which are worth considering as well. And I think they're going to give OpenAI a run for their money. Pi is particularly impressive because it's an interactive dialogue rather than prompts. It's closer to true intelligence for me. So since ChatGPT launched, we've seen a lot of innovation, and I think if you're evaluating the business potential, you do have to look at the paid options, what you get for your $20 a month through ChatGPT Plus, or the plugins, and I'll be asking people about their adoption of this and the other tools, because there are many paid tools as well. But it's been really interesting to see that OpenAI, some of the more innovative companies such as you see here, Stripe, Morgan Stanley, have been developing plugins that users of the Plus version can use, and I think it's down to businesses to assess the relevance of these plugins in the chat GPT Plus version. I've been underwhelmed, actually. There's many of them, and there are some potentially useful tools such as summarizing PDF for copy, but often other tools such as Bard do that better. So there's not much quality control on those plugins at the moment. So looking at the bigger strategic view, I think what businesses should be asking, not just focusing on generative AI, but looking at all the tools available for automation of communications across the life cycle, as we see here, taken from the 8th edition of my book, because there are options across the board, and as with all strategic approaches, it's about looking at the cost benefit and prioritizing which are going to have the biggest impact. Now, I said the charts you'll see are based on some recent research. Thank you if you were involved in that. If you weren't, you can download the trends with our free membership on Smart Insights. In the time I've got today, we won't be looking at the whole of the race framework that we've developed, which was covered in the previous. If you look across the top of the visual there, we'll mainly be focusing on reach, just due to pressure of time, and also on planning as well. So, brief summary of myself. Worked a long time supporting businesses in working out the best way to apply digital media, digital technology, and then summarizing that to help students in their education and careers. So I really enjoyed doing that and working with many great companies to improve their approach as well. Now, as well as race, which goes into a lot of detail, in fact, in our membership, we go into 25 activities that need to be managed proactively for digital marketing. That can be too complex for business owners. So we developed these pillars of marketing to help simplify the major trends in digital marketing and investment decisions that businesses should take. And this really works across from the very smallest to the very largest business. So you'll see it starts with planning and how you manage digital marketing, how you integrate it with marketing strategy, because that's a key issue, that you don't have a digital silo. One trend is we look at is how many businesses have transformation projects. So, as I said, we're just going to look at the first three of these here, but we will touch on some of the pillars as well. So with planning, we've always found it helpful to suggest to businesses to review their overall digital maturity. And we had some interesting findings around this. For at least 10 years, we've asked in our surveys, do you have a clearly defined strategy? It's a very simple acid test of whether people are just doing digital marketing with no strategy or whether it's a more structured approach. And I think we were shocked when we first did this that many businesses are doing digital marketing but without a strategy, but that red area has actually stayed the same for about since we've been doing these surveys. So it's I think that's a lot of employees of businesses really calling out their management teams and saying, yeah, they haven't really got a strategic approach. But kudos to the third of businesses there who do have an integrated strategy. That's the ideal, where digital marketing is integrated with and aligns with and supports and impacts your marketing strategy. Now, as an intermediate step, you can have a dedicated digital strategy before it becomes more part of business as usual. So how do you assess the maturity across the pillars? Well, at the conference I'll be asking, but in the research as well, we asked people to rate themselves from 1, where really they're unstructured in their digital marketing, a laggard, you could say, up to the most advanced companies, which are the household digital names like Dell and Expedia, Booking.com, ASOS. Every sector has got an advanced company. Amazon, of course, is still in this category. So let's have a look at what the research found. We won't go through row by row, but we can see that the big message is it's surprising how many businesses are quite an early stage in their digital maturity. So the majority there are at stage 1 or 2, and relatively few have got this structured, quantified approach where they're optimizing and using regular testing. And that's across all the digital marketing activities, really quite consistent across the pillars there. Now, we don't always ask this one, but this was an interesting finding. If you compare the two, this is where people are now in their assessment, and this is where businesses, or where people hope their businesses will be in just one year's time, we asked, and you can see the difference. I think people are being optimistic, but it's good to see that there is the focus and the intention to improve their digital marketing. So next up, goals and measurement, and we've always promoted as part of Smart Insights, that's why we have the name we do, this idea of test and learn, using the metrics to set goals, see how you're delivering against those goals through Google Analytics, and then making improvements. One of the practical issues is that this September, Google is stopping its use of Optimize, and people will be using different tools instead. We're actually using convert.com, which is a tool we used before Optimize, and which we recommend. So we asked across some of the main pillars here whether people were testing, and around a third of people admitted really they're not doing any testing at all there in red. And there's even more who they don't have a structured program for testing. So it's a more ad hoc approach there, which is shown in orange. And again, kudos to those higher maturity businesses where they are using a more structured approach, which is what we recommend in our resources, and explain how you can do that for all of these pillars. Now, I think an interesting application of AI, when we see there that many people aren't doing the testing and optimization, which they should be able to if they've ring-fenced the resource to do the testing, that's a big if. But the question is, can we use generative AI to make it easier to test alternatives? And one company that far earlier, before ChatGPT came on the radar, Posado is one company that's doing this, and you can see that their use of AI really is delivering better quality creative and communications, which is getting a higher average click-through rate. And drilling into some of the details here with an example of how this works, it breaks down the narrative into different success factors of motivation, as they call it, and they'll try all of these different combinations in different orders. And you can see here it's often the emotional aspects of the comms which have the biggest impact, as is the case here. And I think this is probably where people are most limited in their generation of copy. It's why the madmen got paid what they did, the great copywriters. So I think with these sort of innovations, of course, there's a lot of fear about how marketers' roles will be impacted. We definitely see technologies such as GPT as being too limited to do everything. And in terms of strategy, planning and review, people are definitely going to be still required. ChatGPT really comes down to the intelligence of the user to collaborate with the AI and to use the right prompts. And a lot of our new resources around using ChatGPT are looking at how you can collaborate, how you can iterate with the AI to get the best result. It's definitely not a tool you can rely on to get results. That's our belief anyway. New technologies will improve, I'm sure, but I think copywriters are safe, at least for the next few years. I won't say how many. That's by way of an introduction to the marketing team at Innocent Drinks here. You can see they did a nice little test on Twitter, now X, looking at doing an A/B test, getting their audience to say which was the AI, which was the ChatGPT generated version. So you decide which of these is best. I think this one was actually quite even, and I think it was the Superman one that won. But very often, like with the example on the left here, there were quite big differences. The Instant team reckon they won on average, which is rather different from what the Posado research was showing. Now, don't have much time to talk about other more innovative technologies, but I've in the updates to the book, I always like asking people to check out Zappar in terms of their augmented reality work uh, with big brands in both integrating into smartphone and these sort of kiosks you see in shopping centres. There's really nice case studies there and a nice show reel on their site. Okay, let's look at media. So this is our key question. And before we get on to looking at AI again, what we were actually doing here was a broader question around which are the most effective marketing channels and which you should be working on, which give you the best return. It's always interesting to know what's working for other companies, what good looks like. So here you can see I've sorted them on the green here is where they've got the highest ROI. So really search engine optimization, so organic search, content marketing, paid search are the really interesting technologies there. I think there's a massive question at the moment, and perhaps one of the biggest trends in 24 will be how Google's new SGE will affect organic search. Some on LinkedIn, if you look at my updates, are calling it out as there's going to be an apocalypse, because what Google seem very likely to do, unsurprising, is they're going to do what Microsoft Bing has done and incorporate AI generated responses when someone types a query into Google, because I think they're finding many of their audience are, rather than using Google, people are now going straight to ChatGPT, because you'll often get a better answer if you just want an overview or you want to drill into the details. You don't need to go to click on 10 different blue links. You just get the best distilled version. And I'm a huge fan of ChatGPT because of that. And to me, it is the biggest change we've seen since social media first came out, when Twitter and Facebook, LinkedIn first launched. So yeah, search is the only game in town at the top there, but we are seeing stalwarts like email marketing automation and social media are still effective as well. We often see in the research that paid display ads are less effective, tend to be used more by larger brands anyway. So I think that's a bit misleading, because some of the social media paid ads are very much about changing perceptions and boosting awareness of services. Finally, website personalization, always been quite outside of retail, hasn't been as effective as you might think. And I think if I was going to work on one technology where there's relatively little competition and there's a potential to get this right, it would be still web personalization, even though Amazon invented it back in the 90s. So time for one quick example of what you can do with AI. And I'm not really recommending this tool because I haven't used it myself, but just shows one of the claims that's possible. So Causal is a financial services fintech solution, and basically by word this tool has generated a lot of articles, and the claim is that 750,000 sessions a month just in this narrow currency exchange sector have been generated through AI. So it's impressive, but I would question whether this is just down to the AI. I think a person will be behind the SEO strategy of deciding which articles to write and the information architecture and the keywords to target. So all good SEO strategy techniques will be down to the success of this. So I've looked at some other examples, and there are applications, definitely. I saw one where Letterbox is another tool in this field, where I saw a health insurance company in the States. They use the AI to create lots of boilerplated templates of getting health insurance in different states, so including text and visuals. So whether you were in let's say Alaska to Arkansas, you would get a relevant page, but they didn't seem to be competing as well on that. So maybe it was too obvious to Google that that was AI generated content. So finally, we're going to take a quick look at Martech more broadly, so marketing technology, and you'll know there's no shortage of marketing technology. You may know this Martech map created, kudos to Scott Brinker from chiefmartech.com, who's created this. Now, I've met Scott. He's very open to sharing ideas and approaches, and he's now part of the HubSpot Martech, advising on their solutions. And he's created this. I think there's 10,000 or is it 12,000 tools on here now. So it's actually unusable, to be honest. When he started, it was less than 1,000, but it does help you think about all the challenge. And I like to show it as to shock people into thinking to be successful in digital marketing, you need to harness the technology to use it as a data-driven platform that you can set goals, run tests, review effectiveness, and then make those improvements using the 90-day planning we recommend at Smart Insights. So yeah, that's the challenge. So what you need to do is to say, well, what are all the applications in marketing for technology? And then how do we categorize those to make sure we've got the best cloud-based platforms? So for example, Adobe or Salesforce or HubSpot, and the specialist applications as well. And another initiative that Scott runs is this, the Stackies, he calls them. This is from the 22 one. He's got a 23 edition out now, but it shows for a large international brand like Philips just how many technologies are available in a stack. And it's of course very complex. It raises lots of questions about how those integrate, how data is shared between them, about privacy, about getting the value from the insight in all of those technologies. And I think that's another interesting application of AI, how it can surface the important measures. And I think we're a long way off doing that, despite GA4 having guidance from AI on the analytics. So the question we asked, we often like to distill these down to a simple question. Really, are you good at this or do you suck? And you can see that around half of businesses are rating themselves as a bit sucky here. So they don't have a structured approach to selecting and integrating Martech. So it's rather like when we looked at strategy at the beginning. They're winging it, basically. With really very few having a well-defined stack. And I think that shows the challenge of this more than anything, with new technologies coming out, mergers and acquisitions, meaning that often the vendors are struggling to create a coherent value proposition and tools that deliver. So it's no surprise that there's lots of people there saying they have significant gaps, because the other important factor here is the return on, sometimes called the return on marketing technology. I've seen research on my blog which shows that around 15 to 20% of marketing budgets can now go into Martech and data management, and that's a scary figure, because that's investment that's being taken out of other channels effectively. And just as with when you're using your word processor or your cloud subscriptions, are you getting the return on that? If you're not using all the features, it's likely you're not. So it's really interesting challenge. To help with that challenge, we've tried to produce a simpler, more manageable categorization of categories across our race framework here. And we recommend the free tools tend to be lower cost, free tools around the edge, and enterprise more expensive tools towards the center of the wheel there. But you can download that for free also with our free membership on Smart Insights. Now, I've talked a lot about ChatGPT, generative AI, and I'm pleased to say that this visual is actually for 2017 when I first started looking at this with Rob Allen, and I worked with him to create this visual. So we had that covered under Reach, but I just wanted to flag up here the many other applications of AI here, often known as predictive analytics, and they're not as sexy, if you like, but there are many options there as well to be considered as part of a strategic approach to this. But we did ask about some of these other, mainly more practical methods of improving channels. So you can see there that it's really search, email, social media, which is getting most of the current activity. And there's a lot of people there that recently started using AI, generative AI. We've got another shock here as well, of course, that there's many businesses who never see themselves using AI because they don't plan to use it in the future, it seems. So it's interesting to speculate about whether they will exist or whether they'll be proven right. So that's our summary of just some of the trends, which you can read more about in the report on Smart Insights. I hope that's interesting and useful. And if you work in a business, has prompted you to review your approach. If you're a student, hopefully something you can take away for your assignment there. And yeah, do feel free to follow on LinkedIn and ask me any questions there, where I'll be. I've got a newsletter where I release what I think are interesting and important new trends. So all the best for 24.